Hi guys, it's nice to be back. Sorry it's been a while, but as you all know, I've been pretty unwell. For the last few weeks, I've got back on track, so I thought I'd show you how I edit some videos. Now, a lot of videos make out Darktable to be really complicated, so I'm just going to run you through these 4 images, and we'll see how easy it really is to use and how powerful it is. Now, I do work in the scene referred workflow, so that means when I'm editing an image, I use the scene referred option. I'll talk you through it as I go along. So we'll start off with the easy one, and then we'll work our way through to the harder one. So we'll probably start off on this one here, and we'll move across to this one, and then we'll come down to this one, and we'll end up on the hardest one. So there we go. So we just open the images, double click on it, and you get our image. As you can see, it's slightly underexposed, some nice shadows, nice sky. Just needs a bit of cropping. There's not much I need to do on this. Now, on Darktable, you get different workflows, and as you can see, this is set to scene referred. That means all the options you get, the editing options you get, are specifically for working with scene referred, although there are a couple of RGB referred there, which is display referred. But generally speaking, scene referred is the way forward with Darktable, so we'll stick with scene referred. So the first thing I do is look at the image, look at the exposure, see what I need to do. I always start from the bottom and work up, but I don't start at denoise, and I'll tell you why later on. So the first thing I do is correct my lens. Now I know this lens isn't in the database, so I'll just choose my lens fixture. And there we are, straight away, the lens is sorted. I'll go back to my quick access panel, and then I'll do the next thing I do, which is my exposure. I'll just click on the little dropper, and that corrects the exposure. As simple as that. Now the next step, I've done a DT style for, and I do this on all my images, and they are available to download on my website. I simply come across to this, and I choose my basic adjustments with no color zones. Now, on the website, when you download this DT style, you'll have all these options here. As you can see, they let you choose starting off from a specific point, but I like to start off with no specific point other than just the basic adjustments. So I click on that, and there we go. It instantly changes. So what that has changed, just so that you know for future reference, the global saturation is set to 30%, the global chroma is set to 15%. That then gives the more vibrance to the image. It also adjusts the local contrast, and that adjusts to 130% detail. So that's all it changes, but it gives you a nice starting point to your image. The next step I do is go into the Filmic RGB module. I click on the black relative exposure, and then I click on the white relative exposure. Most of the time, I don't ever need to touch the contrast button, but it's there if I need it. Now already that's looking quite good. So the next thing I'll do is I'll crop the image. I always crop to 5:4 these days. It's my favorite sort of cropping ratio. So I'll just put that in the center. I'm going to crop there. There you go. As you can see, it's cropped in the center. Now, obviously I could go back into this and just make sure I've done that right. But it's usually roughly the same, so that's fine. Now I could, if I wanted to, raise the highlights and the shadows. And for this first image, I'll quickly demonstrate that. So for the highlights and shadows, you go into the tone equalizer module. So open the module, turn it on there. Go into the masking, and then you click on the little mask icon. First thing you do is click on the little magic wand there for the mask contrast composition. Then you click on the magic wand for the mask exposure composition. And there we go. That centralizes everything up. And as you can see, we've got a nice black and white mask. Turn the mask off. So what that allows me to do now is target specific adjustments and raise the shadows or lower the shadows. So I could technically just raise that up slightly. And as you can see, just raise just enough. I can just raise the different areas up. Now it only covers -8 to +0. So where these sections are very dark, which is minus 15 EV, I could technically go back into the masking and quantize the mask, which means it'll bring down the EV selection. But for this image, I don't need to go that far. I just need a very basic alteration to it because it's more or less as I want it anyway. So that's what else I need to do. These boards here just raise in. There we go. And that's all I need to do with this image. I'm happy with that. So the next thing I do is color grade. Now, you could leave it here, but obviously I've worked on a few styles which are available for download, as I said. And I like to go through them. Now, a lot of them won't be applicable to this sort of image, but you can go through them and use the ones you want. So you could think, oh, I like classic chrome. I like to shoot in classic chrome on my Fujifilm. Click the chrome it button, and there you have classic chrome. But I'm not going to use classic chrome in this image. You could easily change it to like a velvetish image. So it brightens it up. But I'm not going to use that one either. And one of my favorites, my newer one, is my pastel, which is quite a nice one. But for this image, I'm going to choose something very special to me, which is my futurist style. And there we go. I think that looks lovely. It's a nice industrial sort of look to an industrial sort of bridge. See the exposure just needs slightly rising again. So I just do that manually. Just move across a little bit, see where we come. And then it should be nice and bright. There we are, the histogram. That's quite nice. And that's the first image. It's already looking nice. So I'll take a snapshot. There we go. I'll go down to the crop where we originally cropped it. And I'll just compare the images side by side for you. So there we go. As you can see, quite a vast difference in the shadows, the boats, and of course in the color of the sky. There we go. So the next image we look at, as I said, will be the bee image. Flowers and a bee. I'll do this one exactly the same. I can do all my images. I'll correct the lens first. So that was a Olympus file, so I had the correction available for that one. So that was perfectly fine. The first thing I'll do, as I said, is correct the exposure once the lens correction is done. So the exposure, click on that. There we go. The next thing I do is go to my selection, my basic adjustments. I'll give some pop. That looks lovely already. I'm quite happy actually with the Filmic RGB for this, but I'll click the button, just darkens the shadows a bit. I click this EV here and just correct it. There's no blown highlights, it's all looking very nice. I then go to my color selection, color zones, and I'll choose something I want. Now, obviously, futurist wouldn't suit this, but something like Velvetic. Give a nice bit of punch, as you can see. He's there, nice and bright. And we got my new favorite, actually, which is the one I've been working on lately. I've called Natural Look at the moment. It may be a different name to it, but we'll use Natural Look. This was coming up in a future set of presets that are coming out, so keep an eye out for that. And then finally, I'll crop. Yes, I know I should have cropped first, but sometimes you get carried away in the moment. Let me just crop this as roughly as you want it. And there we go. There's the image. It's already got the local contrast. If I wanted to, I could obviously add some sharpening. So I've called this super sharpening. It's just a tweak to the sharpening. Just gives a little punch. And with these photos, you can add a bit of vignette, obviously. So I've actually added a couple of vignette options. So I've added what I call vignette subtle, which gives you this, and vignette big softy, which gives you this. I think for this image, that works quite well with the vignette. There we go, as simple as that. This next one is a bit more complicated. This is in Margam Park, so this is Margam Castle. This was also an Olympus file, so I'll click on the lens correction, and that corrects that. I'll correct the exposure. Now, the reason I'm choosing manually the lens correction for my Fujifilm files is because they're Viltrox lenses and they're not supported by Darktable at this moment. But as each update becomes available, obviously it starts supporting different lenses, but it's easy enough to correct. Anyway, I digress. Back to this one. Obviously, this needs a bit of changing. So I'm going to just go into the rotate and perspective module, leave it to its job. Click on automatically analyze, which it will do. Then I'll click on automatically correct the vertical perspective distortion. There we go. Come with that. So it's looking much better already. While I'm here, I'm going to crop. Because, I like to crop. Let's crop there. That's looking good. So the next thing I'm going to do, basics, this area here is now done. And I'm going to go back to my settings, basic adjustments with no color zones. Hit that. That is applied. Already popping a bit. It's lovely. Do a quick RGB on there. It shouldn't need much on this one because it's well exposed. As you can see, just little tweaks there. Then I will add my color zones. I like to choose, I think those little flowers in the front here could use a crimson boost. Yeah, it's quite dark. I'm not too happy with that one, but I think my new natural look, that's nicer. That gives a nicer look. There's a few you could work with it. Pretty, that's quite a nice look as well. Gives them a little pink flavour and gives you the colour. But I will actually use my natural look on this one because I like that one. We will go with a little vignette. I will use my vignette subtle. There we have it. I'll just adjust the exposure again slightly. And I feel it's just not exposed as I want it, so I'll just drag the exposure across. There we have it. Looking nice, looking nice. So I'll take a snapshot of this. I'll go down to the crop. I'll show the difference. And there we go. There it is before I'd done the final tweaks and added the color zones. There it is after. I'm happy with that. Very happy with that. The final one, just to show you quickly how things are. This is a bit more difficult, but that's fine because the same techniques will do the job. First thing I'll do is my lens correction. It's a 13mm Viltrox lens. It's corrected. Now you can set it up so that every time you import your files, it'll hit that particular correction. But sometimes I don't like to use lens correction because it depends what I'm doing. But certain images I will use it. So I'm going to use it now. I'm also going to adjust this exposure. As you can see, it's still quite dark because it was actually a dark forest I was in. And I'm going to hit my basic adjustments. There we go. Let's get a little bit of a boost. I'm going to hit my black relative and my white relative. Now I've chosen this one because, as you can see, the blown out highlights are a funny color. So that means I need to go into the Filmic RGB, as so. I'm going to reconstruct those highlights now. So I click on reconstruct. I then put a mask on. It's the same step every time, so there's no need to get worried. Bring the threshold down so you can see the areas that you need to actually correct. And just go to these areas here. Then just slightly up the transition so you can see a bit more of the foreground. There we go, that's perfect. As you can see the little mushrooms there. Turn the mask off. There we go, already there's a big difference. I then bring the texture up, which I like to do. And I like to put the bloom construction down. There we go, perfect. You can adjust this as needed. But I think that looks good. The colors match everywhere, it's looking nice. That is the most complicated part, understanding Filmic RGB. But it's quite a simple operation. The next thing I'm going to do obviously is crop. Yet again, I forgot to crop. Let's crop that in there. There we go. It's cropped. There we go. So now I'm going to adjust the highlights and shadows once again. So I'm going to turn on the tone equalizer. I'm going to go to the masking. I'm going to create the mask. I'm going to do the mask contrast compensation, followed by the mask exposure compensation. I'm going to just look around, see what the relative EVs are, and we're all within the 8. That's perfectly fine. Turn the mask off. Come to advanced. Look what these various things are. So I know I need to up there. There we go. That's nice already. Already nice. So just close there. See what these things are doing. There we go. About 7. Right up there. You can actually use your wheel on your mouse to brighten or darken. I think it's looking quite nice. Now what you could do, if I wanted to, is obviously change this a little bit. But I'm not going to a minute because I don't think the crop that, did it? It didn't crop. I don't know why that didn't crop. There you go. Up there. Crop. That's better. Unusual that things go wrong in Darktable. Normally it's pretty solid. And there we go. It's that simple. So obviously I could go into it and add a few more things. If I wanted to just play around with it, I could add some sharpness, which is the sharpness model here, for the amount. I can just add the sharpness. Just makes little tweaks to it. Or I can just dodge and burn with the exposure module. So you can add a new instance, the exposure model. There we go. Then I can just choose a shape. So I'm going to go for draw mask. Get this option. I just choose a circle. Just make it as big as I can because there we go. Just cover these here. Put that. And I'm just gonna change a few things. There we go. And I'm just going to highlight the exposure. Just a little bit. There we go. Just brings it out a bit. There we go. So now I can take a snapshot, go back to the crop. See what I've done different since the crop. The crop didn't quite work. Crop. What was that? There we go. Go to the second crop. The second crop. Makes a big difference. And there we have it. I hope I've made that a bit simpler for people who are using Darktable. It's not a complicated program. You know, it's as complicated as you make it, and it's not complicated. If you'd like more tutorials, just let me know in the comments, and I can run through things faster for you, or slower for you, or concentrate on a specific area. Until then, don't forget to visit onecamera1lens.com, where you'll find out all sorts of information on Darktable and other software, plus reviews and of course my images. Thank you much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.